raise the money. We'll go out and go. And then talk about business. We did it ourselves. Because we offered the dialogue to say, we're coming here to teach you guys. So they made it out. Like they graduate. Sure. Yeah. Wasn't that cultural? It's not loud. They just don't let them do that.
Erica, you gonna make it?
For what? Training business. Yeah, it's some of that. It's like there's a value. It depends where you are. A lot of people go for the kind of big name residency in India, where it's like they treat these surgeons as gods. So exactly, they stand there and watch. And then exactly.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started.
County level.
Let's go ahead and have a seat. We're going to go ahead and get started, please. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm Dr. Victor Awar, the course chairman, a neurosurgeon in Columbus, Ohio. I would again like to thank our sponsors, especially Medtronic, for making this meeting possible. Also, the Kisumu Neuroscience Initiative, we have a good representation at this meeting. Several of the founders are here, actually all of us except one. And then Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital, Maxtown Medical, will be by Vikram Sharma from Pew Synthes on biomechanics and spinal instrumentation. Vikram?
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Awar. Oh, good morning.
Good morning.
This is thing on? Yeah.
I don't think you need it.
I don't think I need it. Okay.
Is it okay if I walk around? Oh, one more thing before Vikram starts. I'd just like to say also this is being live streamed on YouTube. So we have so essentially this is an international conference because it's being live streamed. There are people from other countries that are watching this. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that, yeah, we are live streaming this for people who registered who couldn't be here in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, well, you guys look very tired today. It looks nice early start to the day. So can you guys all do me a favor and let's all stand up real quick, please? Big breath in, reach for the stars, and out through the mouth all the way down. One more time. And back down. All right, now shake it out again. All right, we're ready. All right, we're ready to go. So for those of you who do not know me, please take a seat. Yeah, you're good. My name is Vikram Sharma, and I am a sales consultant for the Pew Synthes Spine. A little bit about myself. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. So if you look at the map of the United States, Ohio is quite literally the heart of the country. It was during my time in Ohio, I went to The Ohio State University, where my Buckeyes at. No Buckeyes in the room? OH? Hey! During my time at Ohio State, I studied neuroscience, and I went back and got my master's in business. After my education, I decided I wanted to blend my passion for neuroscience and my interest in business, and I ended up joining a company known as the Pew Synthes. So at this time, I can't do this presentation on my own, so I'd like to welcome Ian Karras. Please give Ian a big round of applause. Thank you, Ian, for being a good sport. All right, so Ian's going to be my assistant today. So we're going to go through the three major functions of the spine. Ian's going to help me with each one of these, and hopefully after that we have a better understanding of why we like instrument in the future. So the three major functions, first it's motion, weight transfer, and then protection of the neural elements. So Ian, let's start with motion here, all right? So first thing, let's talk about the biomechanics, which is basically the movement, study of movement in the body. So Ian, right there, has a plank, which is going to demonstrate a simple lever system. So if you look at a vertebra, it's going to be a simple lever. If you look at the wood block, it's going to be your vertebra. The discs and the facets are going to be your fulcrum, right? And we're going to move this a little bit more anterior. And then you can see Ian's hands are kind of like the muscle movement, the muscle attachment, the activation. And then you have the passive restraints, which are basically your ligaments. So this is critical to understand, and this might give us a little bit more of an understanding of why we might instrument. Really show the flexion and extension on there, Ian, if you don't mind. There you go. You can see how the facet kind of move, and the disc is moving with the flexion and extension. Any questions? All right, let's keep moving. So next we're going to have weight transfer. All right, so Ian, what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate how a lot of the weight is transferred in a functional unit of the spine. Say we have 100 kgs going through. 80 of those kgs are going to go through the anterior column. The remaining 20 are going to go through the posterior elements. So Ian, why don't you hold this chair as close as you can up to your chest. You're going to notice that when I push down, he's still got a very good grip of that chair. However, Ian, let's move it away from you a little bit more. All right, now let's see how much. Oh, there you go. A little bit more work is required by a spine. Here, let's turn around to the side so you can see it. A lot more work is required to keep that spine erect. So you'll notice that as you increase the distance away from the body, more work is required from the spine, and thus, a lot of my friends back in the United States, they enjoy keeping this distance, if you know what I mean. All right, last but not least, let's talk about protection. Very straightforward. Your spine is quite literally a bony cage around the neural elements. And then you also have these ligaments, which are basically like rubber bands, which help prevent excessive motion. All right, so this is a great picture because it illustrates that idea that I'm talking about. You have an accident. I think this illustrates the man in the middle. It's kind of like your neural elements. The car might be total, but the person inside still is very safe. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about spinal instability. So now that we've covered biomechanics, instability might make a little bit more sense. I have a very long-winded quote by White in Punjabi. I'm not going to really worry about that, but what I will say is that instability can be described in just this one slide here. So right here I have a deformity. Whoops. Right here on the bottom right, you can see a deformity. That's a certain type of instability. You might have a traumatic injury, which causes instability, a degenerative disease, which may cause instability in the patient, a pathology such as cancer, and then lastly, an iatrogenic or post-surgical instability. That is probably the most unfortunate instability that we see. So how do we treat these instabilities? I'm just a rep, I'm just a sales consultant, I am not a surgeon, but in my opinion, the best correction has two primary goals, and that is a decompression, whether that's indirect or direct, and then a restoration of the original stability via instrumentation or arthrodesis of the body. All right, so there's a couple of different types of instrumentation we can apply. We can have a buttress plate with an interbody, such as an ACDF or an anterior lumbar. Nowadays, we are seeing some disc replacements. This kind of comes and goes, where you remove the degenerative disc, the painful disc, and replace it with a prosthesis, which allows that movement to continue. This is thought to reduce the risk of adjacent segment disease. I don't know how the data is looking for that. And then neutralization plate, say you do a lateral corpectomy, you have this plate that's going to help with the axial load and prevent normal bending. And then a posterior tension band is really going to help with Wolff's Law. You load bone to grow bone. And then lastly, bridge fixation. We see these a lot with burst fractures to help that anterior column heal in a traumatic incident. So there's a lot of different materials we can use for these constructs, but in my opinion, there are three primary criteria we really have to look at. First is being elasticity. What is the modulus of elasticity? How flexible is this material when a force is applied? How does the imaging look on this material? Is it radio-opaque? Is it radiolucent? Can you use it in an MRI? And lastly, is it biocompatible? Does it integrate with the body, or is it completely rejected? So I have a couple of these different products that we most commonly see. And now it's interesting. I want to open it up to the floor if you guys don't mind. I have PEEK here, and my curiosity is for your anterior cervical surgeries, do you folks use PEEK? Do you use titanium? Do you use some sort of allograft or autograft? And I'm curious to why you might choose.
So for me, I started my career with bone graft from the hip, which required a separate incision and pretty painful for the patient, but it showed that cadaver bone was okay. So cadaver bone then became the preference. There's only one way to get cadaver bone, however. You need a cadaver. And so when PEEK and other synthetic implants became available, I switched to them. And I use PEEK primarily because in looking at the different varieties of implants currently, I think that the combination more closely mimics bone, and its availability and its variability, I think is quite good. So that's kind of where my practice is at, or inner body graft in that regard.
Dr. Patel, you were shaking your head when you talked about PEEK.
I mean, I personally use allograft. It's worked well for me, my hands. I think it uses well, and it's also cheaper. So, you know, healthcare in the United States, all about efficiency, and whenever you make innovation, it has to be better or cheaper. I always tell, you know, whenever I'm doing R&D, you make something better, it's more expensive. It's hard for people to use, especially hospitals to approve. So I use it for that reason. It works just as well as PEEK, and it costs points significantly less. And I really have an issue with it.
Does anybody use titanium in the audience? No? Dr. Karras, do you have anything to say? Dr. O'Neill?
Thanks for that. I think Robert and I have gone through the same kind of experience in terms of the kind of material. I just have to add that painful thing about the graft from the hip. I've had the privilege of getting a graft from the hip, and it's excruciating. All the pain that you have, forget the neck pain, it's that hip pain that hurts most. So the fact that there's a PEEK graft available, it's very useful. Now, in this country, we don't have access to bone banks, and don't have cadaveric bone. So if you have to get graft, it has to be from the patient. But as it is, our vendors have managed to get the costs of some of the grafts that we PEEK downwards. And if you look at the operating time and so on and so forth, it has come in quite useful. So it is competitive. So PEEK has come, is quite popular.
So those of you who use PEEK, are you guys concerned about the biocompatibility of PEEK at all?
I don't have data to confirm, but since I've been using it, I haven't had infection or that so far. So it works very well for me.
Thank you. So next, I'm going to have Ian kind of walk us through some of the rods that we have up here. Yeah, let's start with that one, Ian. So right there, we're going to demonstrate a 4.5 titanium rod. So Ian, give that a good little bend. Let's see if you can do it. There you go. Look how strong he is. All right, so that's a 4.5 millimeter titanium rod. All right, Ian, pick up the next one. This is going to be a 5.5 millimeter titanian rod. Yeah, there you go. Nice.
What did you have for
All right, Ian, let's see if you can pick up the 1/4 inch rod that's 6.35 and see if you can bend that.
Here's the phone book next.
All right. I don't want to hear. What about the cobalt chrome? Try the cobalt chrome rod. Oh, it's tough. So next, my question is, do you prefer cobalt chrome or titanium, and for which patients, and what is the diameter that you typically use? Any of the surgeons, attendees out there?
Dr. Geller? I'll get.
So I think for me, it depends on the indication, right? So if you're fusing someone who's got a burst fracture, that's different than a grade 1 spondylolisthesis. So I think that the rigidity of the rod, goes with the indication of the surgery. So scoliosis or a large deformity, I tend to use something like cobalt chrome. I don't use quarter-inch steel anymore. For something like a degen, then it's usually a titanium alloy. And the diameters are all variable with these systems now, but usually it's a 4.5 or 5.5 rod. Actually, I went through a phase where I was using peak rods, and I found that to be extremely helpful for patients with a single one-level disease. But that's sort of fallen out of favor, I think, just because of the various commercial matters. But that's sort of how I go about it when I do. And Dr. Patel agrees with me. Everything I say, pretty soon sounds good.
It's always important to do.
Dr. Moore, would you like to add to that? I know you are a proponent that who does not use a lot of cobalt chrome. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, I don't use cobalt chrome that often. No, there are certain instances that I will use cobalt chrome. I just think it's too stiff, personally. Whenever I've used cobalt chrome, I think with long constructs, due to the incidence of PJK, the stiffer the construct, the more likely you are to have those adjacent segment kind of problems. But I do like cobalt chrome for satellite rods for PSO. That's where I think nice cobalt chrome rod would be, because whenever you do osteotomy or something like that, the incidence of rod breakage goes up. So in those cases, cobalt chrome is my preference.
Thank you. All right, let's give Ian a big round of applause for being a good sport today. Thank you, Ian. Appreciate it. All right. Well, I couldn't be more proud to be a part of this organization. I see, looking out in the audience, it is pretty amazing how much progress this organization has made. So with that, I'd just like to say Asante Sana. Did I pronounce that right? All right. And what other questions do you guys have? Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Next, we're going to have a panel discussion on quality improvement and malpractice prevention. So Dr. Chris Karras, Dr. Aluna, Dr. Galler, and Dr. Koff, please come forward.
Yeah. Go with the disc.
That would be a distraction.
This is what I'm making today.
We're just going to start off by introducing yourselves and who you are and where you work.
Good morning. I'm David Olochurunya, practicing neurological surgeon from Nairobi, based at the Nairobi Hospital. I also consult at the County University Hospital, and I'm a board member at the Igero Yoringa Teaching and Referral Hospital in Kisumu.
I'm Dr. Peter. I'm the CEO of Igero. I'm academics, some health economics, and also business administration.
My name is Robert Galler. I'm a neurosurgeon from New York. I work at a large healthcare organization called Northwell. I'm the director of neurosurgery at Connick Bay Medical Center and the director of spine for the Eastern region of the system.
I'm Chris Garris, a neurosurgeon from Ohio and Dr. O'Rourke's partner at Grand Medical Center.
Okay, so we'll start with Dr. Lunya. So how does your hospitals ensure quality, or how does that work at your hospital?
Thanks for that question, Dick. You said my hospital. I mentioned a few hospitals. So
how do your hospitals?
I think the one which I'm most concerned about here is the Mogorinda Teaching and Referral Hospital. I have the privilege of being recently put in charge of quality when I got on the board. So one of the things that we discussed with the CEO is really benchmarking. I think what we looked at is what is best practice, and best practice isn't being measured by us. Best practice comes through what is published. We know what figures should be in terms of inpatient, outpatient outcomes, infection control, and so on. So what we're in the process of doing, and I think this is work in progress, is to be able to see where we are in terms of patients coming through, the markers for in-hospital stay, time in the operating room. Since the Kisumu Neuroscience Initiative had been working at the Institutional Referral Hospital, one thing we've introduced has made a big difference, and I think we got message from the operating room here, the theatre checklist. It's something simple, but it has made a big difference. And it may sound obvious, but you have to know that you're operating on the right patient, on the right side, or the right condition, and on the right level. It sounds very clear. Pilots have been doing this forever, but we've had one of the few concerns in the country where mishaps have occurred. But that's one thing which we started last year. And I think as time has gone on, it's now part and parcel of how things work. So to come back to your question, it is really looking at best practice and trying to make sure that's incorporated in the system.
So who collects data, for example, at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, who collects the data on postoperative infections and stuff like that? Would you be able to say, last month we had X?
Streamlined, and the record keeping system, I think we discussed it with the CEO, we should be able to track it. At the moment, it's all paper-driven, and it's put in the records office, so it is done retrospectively. But in the operating theatre now, the indicators, the nursing staff fill in forms to state how the patients are coming and what procedures are being done. And I know within the information systems that are coming in, we'll be able to do so this coming year.
Statement and specifics. I want to state that quality, we have a quality improvement team in place, all specific. A lot of work is being done to ensuring that we move forward with the quality. But I want also to state that the method of providing reimbursement, especially when it comes to emphasizing has very significant impact on movement towards quality, because then it provides the incentives what that quality coming. And we want to look at quality again broadly, because quality means timeliness of service, quality means the efficiencies that are there, and of course safety and all that. Now, factoring on safety, which Dr. Lunya has dealt with, is the checklist. Now, the problem we are having is the implementation side. These things are there in terms of what needs to be done, briefing, signing in, signing out, checking out, signing out, and debriefing. They are there. The problem is the implementation. And what I also observed that the change management is quite a big problem among especially the older people. When now the younger comes in, and but if it is led by the more experienced, then it becomes much more easier. So yeah, that's the observation.
Thank you. I mean, just to comment on the timeout process, I know the first time I was here, I stopped to do a timeout, and everybody kind of looked at me like, "What is this guy doing?" You know. So I think this time around though, everybody seems to it's become part of the process. So it's good to see even those simple things, make a big difference. So it's good to see that some things have changed since the first trip that we did. Any questions from the audience? Anybody have a question about quality or malpractice prevention?
I would just like to add that with the timeout process and the things that I've encountered being here, I think the key for the folks here is going to be that these should be physician-led endeavors. And I think that one of the things that I've noticed that the staff really embraces is when the doctors absolutely are on board on that team. Physicians are very difficult people at times. We don't like to adopt new methods, especially if we're a little older. We get a little set in our ways, and then someone tells us we have to do it a little differently. It can become difficult. And I can tell you at home, the timeout process is extremely extensive, and when it became part of our operating room procedure, many of us kind of felt that this is just a waste of my time. I would like any of those physicians to come here and tell me it's a waste of time. It's enormously important, and I think that all of us that are visiting, we do the timeout knowing how important it is. And I think that the staff kind of gets that, and so for any of these measures that are taken to improve quality, whether it's determining the checklist or monitoring for infections or things of that nature, if the physician's champion, the rest of the staff responds. I think that would be the only advice I can give to the residents and the physicians here, because these are new things, and it's effort, it's extra effort. It's things that don't necessarily have a monetary tag on them. You're going to have to work a little harder than you were to do the same amount, but at the end of the day, you'll get those improvement features as a result.
Thank you. We had a question?
Yes, sir.
I don't think the mic is on. And if you would, please just introduce yourself. Go ahead and introduce yourself before the question, please.
Yes, my name is Zani. I'm a neurosurgeon from Nairobi. I work with Oromia sometimes. But I also have a private hospital where I normally practice. Now, malpractice and litigation, quality training is a key to everything, and having the proper instruments, because if you are trained and you don't have the proper instruments, you're probably not going to do a good job. So I think that is key, and especially for our emerging hospital. The contents of such kind of meetings where we are and there, and so I think that is important for all of us, and just a question that I'd like to ask this guy from Ohio. Sometimes in 2004, 2005, I did a fellowship in St. Louis, and Ohio was not the place to go because of litigation. I wonder how you have gone, how that you practice there. I don't know how you have managed to go about that. But, and of course, can we learn even from us from here, from what is up there?
So you're right that Ohio was one of the worst states for malpractice litigation. And each state has different laws that apply to how malpractice is applied. And that continues. So malpractice insurance, if you're in private practice, is the average in Ohio $150,000 a year. So $150,000 has to be collected just to pay malpractice. Mostly trauma, mostly indigent population, mostly emergent neurosurgical procedures. The risks are increased significantly for malpractice. In 10 years, though, we've had no suits against us. And it's not because we're doing the best job. It's because the hospital is doing the best job of shielding us. And there are multiple ways to do that. So, yes, there are attorneys available at the hospital. There are legal processes that assist with that. But the reason that this panel discussion is labeled quality and malpractice litigation is because you have to have a certain level of quality at the hospital in general for an individual surgeon to avoid malpractice issues. You can't on your own control all the factors. In fact, many times we are concerned because we think a lot of the malpractice litigation is due to something that we had no control over. How was the wound cared for afterwards? How was the ICU managing the patient afterwards? What equipment was available to us in the operating room for this emergency procedure? These are things not in our control, we think, but they are in our control. And what we have at our hospital in general in the United States are what are called CPIT, C-P-I-T. That's Continuous Process Improvement Team. All of those letters in the acronym are extremely important. So you can have this general theme of wanting high quality at your hospital, but there has to be a functional way to do it. There has to be an operational way to make it happen. And the way we do that is we atomize it. So every small group in the hospital, every specialty, the oncologists, neurosurgeons, neurology, trauma, have a CPIT. It's continuous. They meet every month. It is process improvement. The goal of the meeting every month is to improve whatever processes are in place and add new ones if necessary. And then T is team. There must be 15 or 20 people in every meeting. And it's because it's not just a neurosurgeon that's going to make the quality better. I can only do so much. I'll make sure I scrub properly. I'll make sure I wait for the betadine to dry. There are only certain things I can do. But the other 15 people in the room are responsible for wounds, for administrative issues that may arise, for equipment, for financial things. And so this meets every month, and everybody in the room has ideas on how to make the process for that one small part of the hospital better. And unless you do it continuously, the habits fall away. How are things documented? That has to be part of a continuous process improvement. There have to be a team of people creating that process. It can't be a nurse. We don't know how to create that process. But we can tell you where it fails for us. The nursing can tell you where it fails for them. So that CPIT, I think, is one of the most important things in actually making the quality changes. And those quality changes shield you from malpractice in all the parts of the hospital that affect your patient. You will be open to malpractice issues.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Over here. Hi, my name's Rebecca. I'm a circulator and nurse.
This is the mic. Go ahead.
Okay. It's a little while. My question or my input to this in observing in the hospital and participating here, we saw two areas. In the timeout area, and it's great that you are doing a pre-incision timeout. We include a timeout with anesthesia at induction. And it includes the team, and they participate in having everybody on board when the patient comes into the room. They're getting ready to go to sleep. We do a timeout with anesthesia just to make sure we have all the safety checks, the right patient, the right procedure, and what they need in the room for induction. It seems that what I've observed at the Anesthesia Act, it's like a parallel process. You know, they bring their patient in, the team is working in the room, but there is no acknowledgement between. And it's essential because, as we know, induction is like a very dangerous potential time for a patient. So it would be, I would include that, I would suggest to include that in the timeout. Also, our timeouts, because they are surgeon or attending driven, we laminated a form, and I don't know if that's a possibility, but it keeps the form clean. You can mount it on a wall. It's an acceptable standard. And at all the important notes that have to be addressed at each timeout are there. So the surgeon or the attending anesthesiologist can look up, know exactly what he's addressing at every moment through that timeout. So we're not prompting him, we're not leading it for him, that they're an active part, but everybody's aware. That was the one part, that's the one thing I would address in timeout. The second thing in quality and improvement is the processing of instruments. So there is it seems to be, they're doing the job that they can with what they have, but the items that are coming out, as cleaning the items, it isn't the best area. There's buckets on the floor, and I know that that's all that's available, but there are exchange buckets, which is a good thing, and they're hand washing. The second part of it is when they put items in an autoclave, they don't have shelving in their autoclave. So everything's piled on top of itself. So yesterday we experienced a lot of wet items, wet cloth coming out. So that, that takes away sterility. So the simple things that we could do to make sure things are clean and sterile, that we would eliminate any contamination of anything, that would be one of them. They just didn't have shelving unit. They're using it. The things were wet, and there was, they did the best they can. I'm trying to look at the most simplest things to make things the safest for the patient. And that was the other item. Also, the way that the cleaning technique is done. Everybody needs to be on the same page, how they approach a room, how they clean that room from morning, from before the case to the end of the day. There's a little bit of exceptionals in that no one follows the same process. They would be the basic things, and maybe hand washing, the way you would come into a room. We were teaching our scrub techs, the first assistant in our scrub. We're teaching the students and the staff coming in. They would wash their hands, come in sterile, and then open gowns without having everything open prior, having your sterile gown open, your gloves up. They would come in thinking they were sterile, can open their package, then put their gown on. So simple, 1, 2, 3 steps that could be processed and followed, that everybody would follow the same thing. It probably would help someone.
Thank you. To Dr. O'Callaghan and Dr. Lunia, maybe you can answer this one for me. Is there a peer review kind of system in the hospital, and how do you deal with, let's say, a particular physician quality, or if there's something that's questionable, how do you go about, is there a peer review system, or is it a different system how you deal with quality issues from individual physicians?
Let me take this. Yes, we have a system of peer review and peer review, and that's generated from particular areas, the division of medicine, division of surgery, and various divisions in the hospital. And this we formed for the last 3 years. We've been running a professional ethics and integrity committee. It takes a lead on that. We meet every month, whether it's an issue at hand or there is no issue at all. They look at the processes and concentrate on areas that probably are prone to that. We know that 50% of malpractice cases from literature and even from our observation, emanate from issues around the operating environment. And those are given due consideration.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Vincent Honko, currently a Cossessa Year 1 resident at UTRH, a strategic management practitioner and a budding healthcare, public healthcare practitioner. Thank you, Professor Rooney. I'm happy to know that at the board level now you're spearheading the quality at the UTRH Center. My CA is here. Dr. Court, as my senior in strategic management practice, you know that the concept has evolved to strategic quality improvement. At UTRH, we have an integrated holistic strategic quality improvement plan, and we know that it's client-centric. There are specific champions that have been identified to drive this. Dr. Karas has talked about the CPIT, which is also very important in driving quality. Is there a CPIT at UTRH that on a monthly, quarterly sits to review this? I'm happy that you noted that 50% of our quality gaps obtained from the surgical practice. Is there a team that sits down based on head data to drive our quality improvement? Thank you.
Yeah, we have a quality team that reports directly to the office of the CEO and the board. At the board level, we have a quality team too. Now, the quality team the quality management team cascades up to the departments. At the department level, we have work improvement teams that consistently sit on, every month and gives feedback. So there is a specific organogram just for quality and how distributes the information. The other observation that I wanted to make is that when we're also looking at the quality, we need to really factor in the issue of informational asymmetry. 8% of the patients that we are seeing are mostly from poor background, of course, because we are public hospital. And there's usually a tendency to treat what is issues less. If you have a big gap between the provider, because of the nature of the profession, between the provider and the consumer, you are likely to have more quality issues when the distance is bigger or longer when we have, let's say, in private. And therefore, the only problem that again is there, because people are less likely to raise these issues, so we are the custodian. So it's important that in public setup we have stronger quality teams. That's not to say that we should have otherwise in private. Now, as you even go to much more subspecialty like neuro and that, the distance becomes much longer. So that vigilance need to do that. I don't know if I have answered the question.
We'll take one more right here.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Nkuya, a neurosurgery resident from Uganda. My question is how to balance how we define my practice, to balance my practice and good intention in a low setting, whereby you know that this is wrong, but this is what you have to do because the setting is really limited. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. You're working in Murago?
Yes.
Right. Now, knowing that this is wrong and that's what you have to do, in a resource-constrained environment, the caregiver is at a conduit, there's crossroads. Sometimes you have to make a decision as to whether this is going to be life-saving, this is going to be enough to avert a disaster, and yet you do not have the tools to be able to do so. The corollary to that is if you do not do anything, there will be a disaster. Malpractice, the basis of it is there has to be a reasonable body of people who say, in that situation, would they do something similar or not? There are standards of care. I'll give an example. If you are out very far from any institution, a classic one was a story for somebody in the outback in Australia, and somebody had a pupil which was dilating, and there was a body swelling on one side of the patient's head. All he had was a Black & Decker drill, and he made a decision, and he compressed whatever bit of the epidural hematoma was there, and the patient was saved. I had the privilege of working in Scotland. Working in Scotland is all good and everything is good. Outside the islands and highlands, you just have a general practitioner and you need a boat to be able to get to the land. What the general practitioner did, there was somebody that never did it. He did a skin incision, cracked over the skull, took out the hematoma, and he packed it with gauze. If you leave that in WOTRH, you'll be sued. But the fact that you're out in the periphery, you did a life-saving procedure with what you had available to you. Nobody's applying. But in our system here, this last year, for example, in neurological surgery, we now have drills. The hospital has bought. There's some drills that were brought through from the Kisumu Neurosurgery Initiative. So the standard of care to open a craniotomy is to use a drill, not use a sheathing saw and or perforator. But if you didn't have the power tools, you would still be able to get in. So now, if the people dilated and you get in quick enough, the fact that you have the power tools, that may be held against you. So to come back to your question then, if you are in a resource limited environment, then the standard of care, not that it is lowered, but if you are in a life-saving situation, you really have to adapt with what you have. Yeah, so when you're saying something is wrong, the person in the outback who used a Black & Decker drill, when you did it for the patient life was saved and was able to be looked after. But you cannot use a Black & Decker drill and tell them what you need. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, if I may just add also, we have also to, again, review what are the incentives that are there in the system to help address procedural issues. What are things that probably make us not to refer when it is appropriate? What are the things that make us hold on to the patients without consultation? So these are the things that need to be addressed, because then when a decision is made prior that, okay, it's a good intention, what are the implications of these good intentions that probably may not have been mitigated by appropriate consultation and all that are there. But as far as procedural issues, and then what are the issues that lead to misdiagnosis? We exhaust consultation and timely referrals.
And I would just like to add, before we wrap this one up, one more thing. That if you have a team of people meeting about quality, it cannot just be what we call the C-suite or the executives. It cannot be just the physicians getting together. You have to ask everybody at every level to weigh in on how is the OR functioning. We're going to have an operating room CPIT. We're going to have a nursing ward CPIT. But if you don't involve the person who also mops the floor, the person that pushes the bed, it can't just be the CEO. Paul should be there too, the guy that helps us in the OR. If he's not there, those details that no one else sees, that he notices, I can't push the bed around this corner, those things make a big difference. Those things make the daily difference. Those things start to make the operating room, the ward, look better consistently. So I think you do have to make sure you involve everybody at every level in those meetings, or you will miss a lot of the most important things.
And to add on to what Dr. Kara said, you see a lot of times people will come up with these really bizarre quality implementations that you look at and say, who came up with this? Yeah, it was because a bunch of people who are not in that specialty were meeting somewhere, discussing or creating quality measures for something they're not involved with. We see that in our operating room all the time. The people that sometimes are making some of the decisions aren't in the operating room. But we should invite them once in a while to come see, so that they can really, you really have to. I can't emphasize how important that is. The people who are involved really have to be there and be part of that conversation. Thank you. That's it for that panel. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Dr. Haran Patel on cervical spine stabilization.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Haran Patel. Thank you for welcoming me to Kenya and to the symposium. Before we begin, Dr. Ward brings the PowerPoint up. We have these finite spaces to talk. So I revamped my lecture last night after we had very intriguing and a lot of participation in conversations. So I was thinking, most of the neurosurgeons in this room know various techniques to stabilize the spine. So I thought I'd go over some techniques with a twist on it that make it a little bit easier to do some of the stabilization techniques. Maybe we can feed off each other and give each other pointers how you would do it in Kisumu, Nairobi, and so forth, because sometimes we have limited resources. You learn new ways that are more efficient and better. So there's a couple of techniques that we've published and I learned along the way and kind of combined to make life a little bit easier for C1 and C2 screws. And I was going to just go over that in the finite time I have. Hopefully you guys can improve my technique. Can all the residents raise their hands? So the best way to start would be to start with a case presentation.
Actually, while I see the governor, Peter Anyanyongo, is here, while we're working on getting the IT guys to get this to work here, I'm going to just, if you don't mind, ask the governor to come up and maybe say a word or two, just to kick off the symposium this morning.
Yes, if you're ready, give me a few minutes, then you ask the Minister for help. Yeah.
We're ready.
You're ready?
Okay.
Call the Minister.
So we will start off with the Minister of Health, please. Thank you.
The Governor, Great County of Kisumu, Professor Peter Anyanyongo, the neurosurgeons, support staff, the guests, good morning. Good morning. This morning I was with you yesterday, and I opened the symposium on behalf of the Governor, and I told you that he had some engagements yesterday, and I promised that he will be here today. So we are happy to have our Governor here today. So, Governor, these are a team of neurosurgeons from various parts of the country. They arrived last Sunday, and they have been conducting surgeries. So by yesterday, I think by yesterday they had done slightly above 23 surgeries. And this symposium started yesterday, whereby they are sharing ideas, looking at unique medical cases and taking views from each other on what they can do if they were faced with such situations. So without much ado, I take this opportunity to invite our governor to come and address you. Karibu, Governor.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Are you enjoying Kisumu? Yes. Anything I can do to make you enjoy it? Welcome you to Kisumu and welcome you to this workshop or symposium, Neuroscience Symposium here in Kisumu. I've been following closely in the last couple of years your annual work here at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital with a great deal of appreciation, to tell you the truth. And I see that the numbers are growing. We were with Victor War. Where's Victor? Yeah, sure. During the last one. And my friend Dr. Oluwacho during the last thing at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital, and I saw what was happening. Of course, not being a doctor, I was very fascinated to see how people are opened up and all kinds of great things done. And then the next day I met an old man from Moroni who had not been walking before he came, and he was sitting on his bed and he was appreciating the movement of his legs. He admired the transformation. It looks as if Jesus has come back again to raise the dead from their slumber and the disease set free from their diseases. It is really something wonderful. But I'm here really today to first to apologize for not having been here on Monday with you. I was in Cairo for yet another meeting, which is important for our country. And then when I came back with a series of meetings, I was telling Dr. Oluwacho there on launching universal healthcare here in Kenya, which is a very great thing. The president is very concerned about how things are moving. So we've been locked up in Nairobi for the last 2 days, just trying to decipher what we need to do. Well, let me say the following. One, that this neurosciences initiative is probably going to transform what Jaramogi Oginga Odinga is doing, because we have a lot of problems that are related to neuroscience. You now understand it better. I see it in terms of the number of patients having neuroscience-related problems from the dispensary to the health center to the sub-county hospital up to the county hospital, such as Jaramogi. And what universal healthcare is trying to do now is to make sure that as people go up the ladder of referral, that there's capacity at the lower levels to do diagnosis and also to refer people up to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital who really need to be there. So that the work of Peter Okoth there is not complicated by cases that can be solved at lower levels of medical care, and that the likes of you are not very many in this country. I think, if I'm not wrong, there are only about 20 neurosurgeons in the whole republic. Am I right?
It has since gone to 30.
Oh yes, in the last couple of days. The data I knew is that we are only 20, but you know, if you have 20 neurosurgeons in a country of 50 million people, that's quite a burden to the 20 that exist. And therefore, coming here and beginning this kind of work, and your presence alone encourages those people who aspire to be neurosurgeons to do something, to take up the responsibility. So, from a purely practical point of view, what I've seen of the cases we are dealing with in implementing universal healthcare, the data that we are having before us, why it is that we should strengthen the capacity of lower level health facilities so that the need for especially the higher level is not overburdened. That's right. So being here in this week and doing this work, in that regard, is very important for us. Secondly, holding this neurosurgery camp at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Referral Hospital for the third or fourth time? The fifth time. really is good. And I hope, and I would like to appeal to my colleagues here in Kenya, like Dr. Rochalunya, that you keep on the tempo and that more and more people come. The reason why I would like to appeal to more and more people to come is I hope when you come, you're from Britain to the US and so on, you make a decision to stay. Or to come back more often. I think a mechanism can be established where you come back more often and join us in what we're doing so that we can benefit from your specialization or specialities. We in the county government, since health is devolved now, are very ready to facilitate and support what can make your coming back much more productive for our people and for yourselves. Thirdly, the ongoing camp, as I understand it, targets to have managed about 85 patients over an intense period of hardly 1 week. And that to me is really commendable, because just think of the number of people who go without having access to neuroscience and neurosurgery in a year in a country where we are near 20. If you can see 85 in 1 week, I think we are doing extremely well, and I must commend you for that. I want to sincerely thank Dr. Woor and his team of neurospecialists from the United States of America, our locally based specialist, Dr. Lunya, and Peter there and his team at Jaramogi for being hosts to this seminar, and really working very systematically throughout the year to make sure that this symposium is a success. I do believe that when you go to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching Reform Hospital, you will notice that it doesn't really have those conveniences that you may have in your own facilities. But we are working very hard to modernize Jaramogi. It was built many years ago in early 60s. It's like a fort, the walls are very thick, and I don't know what we're defending ourselves against. But that fort has a lot of space in it. And we want to make sure that the space is optimally used, and that other services that are not there that should complement what every department or every specialization in health in there is supported by ancillary services that are necessary. This symposium, therefore, comes at a very critical time in our development at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Referral and Teaching Hospital, in our development as a nation. Now, that teaching hospital is used by two universities, Maseno University and Uzima University. Can I see by a show of hands, Amalu, and combining S and SH is not easy. I could easily say, can I see by a show of hands? But can I see by a show of hands how many people from Maseno are here? Don't be shy, just put up your hands like a man or a woman. Up to heaven. Thank you very much. Quite a number. How many are from Uzima University? Uzima is not really present here. But let me stick to Maseno, since we have a number of people here. I think at Maseno University, medical school, you really must aim as being the avant-garde medical school in the nation, because you can do it. You are in an environment where you don't lack the raw material for your work, i.e. diseases exist in plenitude. I was talking to my friend Dr. Charles Otieno, who is spearheading the establishment of sickle cell center at Jaramogi, and he told me one of the reasons why his colleagues in the US support him in that initiative is that if you have a sickle cell center here, you don't lack patients. They are there in plenty. If you have it in Los Angeles, there are not that many. So it's better to have a sickle cell center at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Hospital where the raw materials are available. I'm sorry to call patients raw materials, but I think in economics, resources like those are called raw materials. So exist, and so you don't lack what you need to exercise your science on patients. Now, one of the reasons why Kisumu was chosen as a pilot county for universal healthcare is because indications of maladies and pathologies and so on were quite plenty here. I'm sorry to say so, but that's the reality. Not that we are that bad, but by coincidence in history, there are certain diseases like malaria, HIV, AIDS, sickle cell, and so on, which do exist here. So if you're going to have universal healthcare and you're taking samples of counties where you trialed a pilot project, you take Nyeri where hypertension is highest in the country, you go to Machakos where they have all the old, but I know of ours. So when you look at that and say, look, Maseno University, that's medical school, you are challenged by the nation that you must spearhead the health revolution in this country through scientific research publications and academic leadership. I think we must go past the era when people at universities with one leg and a bigger leg is outside, purely for business. We will not get very far. I think this is a challenge that we must face in this time, at this time in history. And therefore, if you have a symposium like this, it really warms my heart because I know we are going the right direction. I know we are reaching out to the international community to share our medical knowledge, our experiences, so that we don't only add to their own knowledge because of what they experience here in terms of research output, but we also gain from what they have achieved in terms of technological revolution in health delivery systems. And I will tell you that having visited some of those medical schools in Chicago, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles, in Washington, the technological revolution to deliver healthcare in a much faster and accurate way is amazing. And I hope that when we have this neuroscience symposium, Dr. Lunya, we will come out on knowing that the certain things we thought we couldn't do, we can now do because we can communicate very easily with our colleagues in Lisbon, in Paris, and in Buenos Aires, and in Washington, at real time. I hope you know what I mean by real time. You know it better than I do. And I think so, incorporating this technological revolution, because we have our colleagues here who have practiced under such circumstances for a long time, perhaps maybe the outcome of this neuroscience, and we enrich Maseno's capacity to become the leading medical school in Kenya, the way other universities elsewhere boast themselves that they're leading medical schools in this or that branch of medical science in other societies. As we say here in Kisumu, we want to stop walking with a chicken to fly with the eagles. And that is why our team, which was established just a year ago, Kisumu All Stars, is now going to the Premier League just for 1 year because they knew they had to stop walking the chicken, walking with the chicken and to begin flying with the eagles. And finally, we have a slogan here in Kisumu County, which is called Teach Tire, which means work is being done or work is going on. Somebody said, try to pronounce it and say teach tire, but it should be teach tire. So when I say teach tire, you reply teach tire. Teach tire. Asante sana. Thank you very much. I now declare this symposium open.
Thank you so much.
Your Excellency, Governor, we've been fortunate enough, the team from your press unit and indeed the whole media fraternity, to have been given the opportunity to tag along as the specialists have been carrying out their delicate procedures on our patients. And we did a small video on the first day of operations to share with the professionals who are here to see what this team is really doing, and which we are also sharing with the public. Yeah, neurocamp. There for yeah. Play. Play with what? Let's meet up now. Okay. Real thing.
click. This right click and play with. Happen with what is it? Open with. Happen. Just happen with. First one. Yeah. This full screen. Play. Just to get something else, try to get that USB player. Can I bring my laptop? It's supported. Can play it at YouTube. Yeah. Just go to YouTube directly. That's played. So many initiative. Yeah. What is your purpose? What is this? Give us the link. I think.
No, use. Why don't you use this new one? This one. What's this one?
VLC.
VLC. Use VLC.
Try VLC, but
VLC normally does.
VLC normally plays well.
The VLC is giving us these errors.
It's giving us errors. But let me just put my hotspot. Okay. Connect. Okay. Disconnect this. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Give me that.
This would be a good time to make 5 minute coffee. Yeah. Oh, he's ready. He's ready.
Yeah.
So shows the body video view already. On the screen. It's not on the screen.
It's okay.
It's not on the screen.
It's okay.
Yeah, good.
Kisumu Neuroscience Initiative is bearing fruits, and the evidence? The Jaramogi Oginga teaching and referral theatre spaces are now a beehive of activities. Neurosurgeons, operations, the patient commences. This is the fifth procedure being carried out during the first of a 10 days medical camp here in Kisumu. This initiative was started by Governor Nyong'o and Dr. Victor Awor, a neurosurgeon based in Ohio. This makes for the number of camps held since the inception of the initiative, giving relief to beneficiaries drawn from different parts of the county and other parts in Africa. 15-year-old Letitia Germani from Eritrea is one of the 84 beneficiaries screened and booked for operation here at JOTRH, with the hope that parts of her dysfunctional body will still be salvaged. Letitia has been through difficult years of her life, not just 1, 2, or 3, but 4 years of unbearable growth attached to her spine.
We came to this from Eritrea. Before 4 years she was okay. This is it came at the age of 11. She came to God's school, which was the last 3 years special. She was staying at home.
Her brother shared a story on social media, having been to India but not finding help for his sister's condition. 22-year-old Elijah Onyango is on wait in the ward, being freshly in school and freshly paralyzed, shaping the career of his life, but life happened before he got ready for it.
2017 I was in Form 4. Around 2 months to exam, I started losing balance again. Then reaching December there, I could not walk again. The condition has come back. Okay, but 2018, I was not able to move totally.
Elijah's education lacked continuity. It happened in starts and stops, having stretches and setbacks and days when the world felt wide open, and others when all his doors slammed shut.
I wanted to study ICT. The condition that's what allowed.
This year's camp commenced on 17th of June and it runs all the way to 27th of June. It comes with a cost of 15 million shillings. It is subsidized by the Kisumu County government, which is contributing over 5 billion in pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceuticals and equipment. However, the experts are giving their services free of charge.
We came on board, what can we do for our community? So we started an organization called the Kisumu Neuroscience Initiative, and that initiative's goal really is to give back to this county, to give back to the place that we call home.
We are here on a medical mission trip for neurosurgery, and we're doing spine surgery and craniotomies, brain surgery, and we are here to devote our time to helping the patients here. Kisumu County is committed to becoming a center of excellence for neurosurgical needs. However, there are still gaps to be handled.
In January, and now we have seen around 402 neurosurgical cases. And out of the 81 that we are conducting, it is out of around 1,904 that we have accumulated so far. And part of these sessions where we arrange them is to reduce time to surgery. We don't want also waiting time to be very long.
The culmination of the camp will be a neuroscience symposium, a forum to learn more from the experts.
It will be accompanied by a symposium where now the professionals from around the world exchange their views on how we can scale this up.
The doctors have found an opportunity to flame fuel the beneficiary lives when all odds worked against them, having so needed the hope that the doctors are giving.
na mniahidi baada ya kusaidiwa hiyo crutches nitawacha chini na nitatembea nirudi kwa kazi yangu vile nilikuwa nikifanya kazi zamani.
With the coming up of the 20-member medical experts, close to 84 neurosurgical procedures are scheduled to be done by the close of 10 days. This goes a long way in alleviating the neurosurgical needs in this area and beyond. This is Kisumu County going big on health. My name is Lorraine Anyango Jaramogi Oging.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wool, for giving us an opportunity to be part of that very important process in the lives of our people. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to take a quick 5-minute coffee break. Again, for those of you who are just getting here, just go out this door or the back door, and the coffee area is to your left. So let's go ahead and break for 5 minutes and then come back in. Thank you.
Do I email them? I can email them. This is Victor's PC. Or I can use my. I didn't come with a flash.
She's like, I'm about to be
EMI.
Yes.
I have the extension, but with it, I have the dongle.
They walked in or said the whole day, and then they walked in, and then they immediately walked out. That's how they talked about. And then they like,
I have this.
walked out. They came in.
What I could do, email. Yeah, I can email. Just let me. I can email the presentation. I can email. Let me just
Oh, it's like a
Oh, you know, I saw the logo. I was wondering what this was. I have some people here, right? They have nice blue scrubs. Yeah, no, I saw the logo. I'm not sure. Okay, I understand.
Yeah, you look sleepy. That's okay, you don't have to lie. I'm tired. I'm usually both.
Basically, brain is one procedures. You're switched to self-funded. How many surgeons work there with you?
You didn't see yourself? They got you scrubbing in, they got you like yeah, you were on there a bunch of times.
The person who does the scrub.
All the like random shots were you. They were just like following you around.
I'm so good on
It's because everybody else was off.
Yeah, I may have seen you there, because I was there, and then they had a global neurosurgery symposium.
What? You applaud of all people. One friend.
You're one friend here.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it this year, too, but I've never been to San Francisco.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly what they do.
Oh, great.
They have to really good at
They have lots of videos. My friend does a video.
Well, now, our Lenky is now back in New York. We still have been watching the University. So we have a really big shot now. He's at Columbia University. Which fellowship did you do there? Spine or vascular? General neurosurgery? Yes, we got Sierra. If you can do it, you can control your own destiny.
It has channels.
tell where my MSN search was coming up on
oh yeah, no, fellowship training.
Yeah, soccer is
You know what? I renewed my NAS membership this year. I've been a member of NAS for like 20 years. They wanted another $800 US from me this year. I just said forget it. I just couldn't take it. I'm a member of ANS, CNS, NAS, XYZ, ABC. And each one of them is trying to take a chunk of money out of you, so I had to cut down.
I appreciate it.
Unfortunately, NAS is going by the wayside. I'm more happy with the CNS.
I think mine is
last one. Yeah, so for lunch. I think it's 2 hours.
Here's healthcare. Now is an interesting.
The guy that's gonna save Kenya down here.
I still get
the ball hit.
I just not an number anymore.
Oh.
I'm on a real letdown. What's that? Yeah.
Hopefully we meet again.
Is this your laptop?
For Dr.
Oh, all right.
No, I had some other.
You're the next presenter.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just get the clicker.
Is there a remote?
Yes, the click I'm getting it.
Okay. Is there a laser on it?
Yes.
Can you show me that, Mike?
Take it. There's still a lot of.
Just all from one camera.
Yeah,
just 7 cameras.
Well, oh, that was just like with like I don't have to do that. Or like,
What's the name of this program?
what happened?
Software is called
Yeah, I guess the
Oh, it's a happy down.
The app is Vivo, but you can't do anything with it. Right. I was moving around.
I mean, I'm not being outlined. That's a little serious question.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of things.
I think you're more than.
Well, I'm also. So like I just went next week.
Yeah, so like,
So I
if
got
I would
my.
like,
I just meant like I just meant like I do like no, I meant like that would probably take up that. No, I just meant like that takes up like my evening. So like I don't that's what my friends like
beginning of two, so yeah.
so like I don't know what I do like spend time. I mean I spend time with people, so like I couldn't
Think about the time there,
like a
probably.
boy, but like what boy?
Wait, Lydia, are you getting your MPH?
No, I'm getting a master's in psychology.
What is that?
An MA.
Also, you just love school.
It was just like a program available at my school, and I could like some of the credits I were paying because we had to do some of the classes at the medical program. Yeah, it's only 30. It was only 32 credit hours. Over 4 years. Some of them I can do in the summer. Some of them are online. I was like, it's just so easy. It's pretty hard actually. It was harder than I thought it would be. But like it sounded, the sell was good, so I thought it was going to be easy because the director of the program was a really good friend of mine, so she was really full on for my team. So it was like, okay, fine. And I really liked it. So I thought it was going to be like, now I'm starting my thesis.
Just go for it, man.
You guys are yeah, we're out.
I think it's easier to be all around when you date.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's horrible too because when you break up, then you're stuck together for like 4 years. Really close.
Or when you're together, so you guys get
Yeah, well, a lot of people just break up.
I would break up.
Good.
Oh,
Mike.
That's crazy. So my buddy, he dated this girl from that suit, med school, and he actually managed to use that. His girlfriend also managed to. I was wondering.
And she probably did.
Yeah.
Well, when you couples match, you bring together, you get together.
What's up?
Usually like. So you don't interview together, but you don't interview together.
What's up?
Microphone bro.
Naongea. Uko sawa?
I work with a doctor.
That's a lot of pressure.
Well, they asked me about dating and they asked me about dating.
If I was trying to get you ever get it in?
We are going to get started. For the people outside, please come back in.
Oh, where's the arrow?
Excuse me, we're going to get started. Please come back inside. We're going to get started. You can bring your food inside, not a problem. We're going to get started. Please come back inside.
Cassie, does he know he's still mic'd?
You got your food. Please
Does he
come
know he's
back
the microphone on him
inside.
still? Does Vic know he's the microphone on him still? Hope he's going to go to the bathroom. And you see Naked Gun.
Yeah.
He goes, the mic's still on.
All right.
School explosion.
Let's go ahead and come back inside.
He's the mic still has to say
Go ahead and come back inside.
He was like, man, that hearing guy sucks. Can't wait till this talk's over.
All right, we'll continue on with our talks. Our next speaker is Dr. Haran Patel from Boston. Thank you.
Well, it's the unenvious task to follow the governor of Kenya, and so I had that slot, I guess. So I'm Dr. Patel. I'm going to switch it back to neurosurgery for a little bit, and like I discussed earlier, we'll go over some techniques that are a little bit different, and see if we can improve on each other's. So we'll start with the case. 81-year-old male, status post fall. It's very common in the United States to have an aging geriatric population that requires a huge neurosurgical need. Nope. So I go over the most common ER presentations of these patients. So the most common fractures and such so forth. So he fell, he came with left hand paresthesias, left arm weakness from prior accident, and urinary incontinence, and he was quite sick at the time. As you can see, his right arm is pretty weak on exam. And he has this MRI. I think all the residents ran away and they heard us and asked some questions. They didn't see anyone back in the room. Okay, so this is a type 2 odontoid fracture with increased angulation into the spinal cord. As you can see, there's actually some signal in the cord. You can't appreciate on the projector, but he's starting to have some ischemic compromise of the cord there with anterior and posterior or ventral and dorsal compression. So it's very common to see odontoid fractures in the elderly population. It's actually the most common fracture in the elderly. So we deal with these quite a bit. Most of the time we deal with them non-operatively with just a collar for 6 to 8 weeks. And then we do some flexion extension dynamic films to see if it's stable. And we do have pseudoarthrosis most of the time, and we can manage it expectantly without surgical intervention. We try to avoid surgery at all costs because of the advanced age, multiple comorbidities, and anesthetic risk. There's a couple of ways of fixing this problem, and I see Dr. Khalif has unfortunately walked back in. Can you give me one approach to fixing this problem?
You can get up. We'll see it.
Okay, posterior, good. So there's two ways to really attack this problem, anteriorly and posteriorly. Anteriorly is very morbid. You have to do a transoral approach and autoidectomy. From the literature's point of view, the morbidity and mortality is quite high from this procedure. That's why you don't see it as often anymore. So for most cases, neurosurgeons today, if they cannot treat it with the odontoid screw, which we're not going to for this lecture, it's a whole lecture on its own, we go posteriorly. Just briefly, an odontoid screw is where we put a screw up from here, and we bring this fracture back down. Okay? And we have a date on that, but that's another lecture. All right. So here's the CAT scan. As you can see, this gap is not going to heal itself. And this is on flexion extension films. This is a unstable fracture. The fracture actually moves back and forth right there and compresses the cord. So he has the Lemaitre sign. And this is a scan of C1. He also has a fracture here in the lamina. And notice Dr. Gao didn't mention yesterday, which I thought was a good point. The reason we get CAT scans with CT axials with thin slices is because we have to know where the vertebral arteries are. That determines our approach of stabilizing it and how we manage a fracture. This can vary on location, and I have two scans that show various locations of the vertebral artery and the transverse foramen. Okay, now this is important. So notice how medial and prominent the verts are in C2. This is going to change my plan of C2 screws if I decide to do that, because these are really shallow and medial. I have no trajectory for my C2 screws. So what I ended up doing was a harms fusion. All right, so I did C1 vertebral arteries because I did not want to do an intraarterial exploration at that time. The neck came for a few weeks, and his leg was given. So he had a similar odontoid fracture, which was which was, would you put this guy in a collar? Right off the bat, until you figure things out? Then when he comes in, you hear the story, you put him in a hard collar, okay? You don't want to move his neck around or anything like that. You stabilize the best you can until you come up with a surgical plan. So, what else would I get besides an MRI, Dr. Sam? Yeah, that's right. Another was right. The CAT scan, correct. What am I concentrating on the CAT scan? I would give you the answer. What am I looking at? Besides the fracture pattern. That's what you're looking at. This calcified disc here. Okay? Okay? So remember that. Just because you have other issues doesn't mean the patient is a big operation. Fix the problem causing the biggest strike, and then follow and address the other issues later. Okay? So this guy has C1, C2 related or lateral mass related. Always look where the vertebral. Now, what's wrong with this picture? You know, which one would cause the most stress? Robust and could handle what's it called, luxury perfusion, or collateral flow if needed. But yeah, put the screw in, and the next step is to get an angiogram. Okay, finish quickly as possible if you want. The next step is the angiogram to make sure there's no dissection. That we throw the clots up to the brain. All right, so now your next thing to want to worry about is there's a dissection. Side note, I did do I had a chordoma one time where we had to sacrifice proton beam because of artifact from coils. So if you're doing a cancer case, you got to think second and third tier. Well, my intervention now prevents treatment down the road. So we had to go in and actually physically sacrifice the vertebral artery, intra-op, remove the coils so the patient can get radiation, proton beam therapy down the road. So there's something to remember. So this patient, because of that vertebral artery being right there, what type of screw would you consider for this patient, knowing they do not need a C2 laminectomy? Would you do a pars pedicle screw, transarticular screw, or a translaminar screw? So who would do a pars pedicle screw? All the residents raise their hand. No hand should go up. Alright? That bird's huge. You don't want to flirt with it. Alright? So the translaminar screw is not a bad idea, right? You got a thick lamina, okay? Then you take two screws, one screw going this way, one screw going lower, that way. Right? So that's exactly what we did. We want to have boring, routine surgical cases. We don't want to have excitement. We don't want to have interest coming out of it. We want to go in, go out, and forget the case. We always tell our patients, you don't want us to remember your surgery. You want us to just remember, oh yeah, I want to access that. Okay? So now, some tricks I have to do C1 lateral mass screws. So, okay, and this is the bane of neurosurgical existence. The epidural plexus bleeds like crazy. Okay? So as you're dissecting down the bipolar patty, you're bleeding, pack it off to the other side. And go back and forth and get post-op pain. So instead of, we start our whole entry point right there, in the inferior portion of the lamina. The diamond drill bit is fine, doesn't shatter like the matchstick does, and it starts the pilot hole. Now, what's the main concern about going too high in the lamina? Dr. Sam certainly answered every question today. Lamina below, and you can start your. So after I do my C1 laminectomy first, I take my 4-pen field and I palpate the borders of my lateral mass. So I bring it down here and I feel my lateral mass. Okay, so I know where medial is. Medial is right there with diamond drill bit. And I know that may not be available in Kenya, but it's just an idea you maybe think about starting a drill bit. It has to be small, can't be big, and can't have a lot of motion. Okay? And I go 2 millimeters at a time in the beginning, and then when I pass the vertebral artery, it reaches. So I go 2 millimeters at a time, I go up to 4, I get a little bit more aggressive. After I'm passing, explore internally. Internal carotid artery. Okay? So the C1 screw is not a benign screw. There's a lot of ways to hurt the patient, but essentially crossing the facets into the pars pedicle. Okay? This lateral mass screw for and the vert's massive, is the most common technique. Any other PGY2s that are above in the room? Sorry, but what's my target body? Your pars pedicle trajectory. I kept this one short on purpose because of the vertebral artery. Okay? So, any questions so far on that? And then fluoroscopy, other than using handheld drill. Patients and anatomy. If you use 17 inches, yourself in. It's really big. And so, millimeters above the facet. Another caveat in various versions of need more. Again, patients have larger distance to the lateral mass, where you need like 15 or something, that has to be specially made. Okay, but most commonly is, and here's this machine. Okay? And I keep this a little bit proud. Just so easy to put my body again. So here is offset a little bit. They don't go in the same place because they'll hit each other. Alright, so this takes a little bit very well. Okay, same technique, tap, rope. And if you're on UKC2 lamina, this is a very good, easy, quick way, safe way to stabilize an odontoid fracture. So usually I do translaminar screws, like if I don't have to do a C2 pars pedicle screw. Okay? And same concept. If I was going to do a pars pedicle screw, I did C2 laminectomy, I palpate it with a 4-pen field. Okay? Lateral to the cord. Alright? And that way I know my barriers. And then, so I do a combination of all 3 of these techniques. So there's 3 techniques, Marshall, Anderson, and Pan. I visualize lateral mass like a shoebox. Okay? And here's the shoebox. So that's the front, back. Alright? So I find the midpoint of the lateral mass, and I go 1 millimeter inferior, 1 millimeter medial. And I take the X-ray, and I try to get lowest on my lateral mass that I possibly can. And I aim for the outside corner of the box. So let's pretend, alright, let's get a picture. So this is the box, okay? So I take X-ray, I go to the lowest part of the lateral mass, I want to use as much of it as I can, and I don't want to get in the joint. And I aim for the upper outside corner. Does that make sense? So I drop my hand, inferiorly, and I angle up and away in a step-like direction out to the outside corner of the box. Okay? This avoids the vertebral artery, alright? And the nerve and it stays out of the joint. Okay? It's an important, easy trick. Instead of memorizing all these angles, which I'm not that smart, so it doesn't work for me. I have simple analogies. So I imagine the lateral mass of the box. I go for the outside corner, and I use X-rays to got the first couple. Now C6 and the patients of Dr. LaBelle and myself sometimes, they're not amenable to a fluoroscopy after C3. Okay, so that's where this consequence becomes more important. And the lower you go, the lower you need to be your entry point in your lateral mass screws, because your lateral mass gets thinner. Okay, it's harder, and also it's harder to angulate. So you have to kind of exaggerate your motions to get that corner. Alright? And after you use a drill, you throw away the laminectomy. And then finally, if you're going to do a laminectomy, I do my pilot holes first. I fill them with flow seal or Surgicel or whatever I have. And then I do I like the lobster tail technique. So essentially what I do is, so I drill a trough at the facet lamina junction from C3 to C6, or to C7 where I'm going. Alright, and then I do on both sides. And I take two towel clips and I connect them to C3 and C6. I have a system of mine pull up on it, upward pressure. So this way, then I start biting the ligament away and it peels off. So I do a laminectomy in one full swoop. The advantage of this is, if someone has critical stenosis, you're not putting a kerosene in there first in the cord. There's a couple of epidural bases here. And I think actually it makes the surgery a lot quicker and safer. Okay? Here's just another, I'll go through the picture too. So let's pretend this is my box, right? It's actually presented really well here. So I'll make my entry point right about there. Alright? So this is the midpoint, so 1 millimeter lower, inferior 1 millimeter medial. This is my entry point going for this corner right here. Does that make sense? So here's the side view of the box. Alright, I'm going to this corner right there. And that works out well, especially if you have fluoroscopy. A lot of us do cervical fusion without fluoroscopy. We can't see anything. We just take it out. Would you read Dr. LaBelle?
Can't see past C3 sometimes.
And Dr. LaBelle said you can't see past C3 sometimes.
Their neck's as big as
right.
thigh.
Right. And finally, I hail from Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, really?
And we've had a 72-day drought of championships in my city. So we're kind of depressed right now. But, Dr. War one day experienced my life. So does anyone have any questions so far? Yes, sorry for picking on you so far. And I know you.
Use the mic. Use the mic and introduce yourself, please. There's one there.
Yeah. So the last case. The last of the 2 cases here.
Yeah.
So the fracture was unstable. So you met the stabilization, but the decompression part was not done. Yeah?
Yes, it was.
So
sure. So the first things first is get the spinal cord safe. Okay. Now in the United States, we do these cases with neural monitoring. Why? When you go from supine to prone, this fracture is already moving. I can flip them prone and get the fracture to move backwards and compress the spinal cord. All right. I don't want the respiratory drive to be in neural monitoring. I don't want anesthesiologists say, hey, they stop breathing anymore on their own. So we use neural monitoring to see if there's signal change. And often we do get signal change sometimes. About once every other month on a patient where I flip, I get 3 flip baselines, I flip them prone, and we lose all signals. And I'll try to manipulate the head under fluoroscopy, and there are Mayfield tongues, and I'll try to reduce the fracture and get the signals back. And if you can't, you flip them back over and do a recheck. And let's pretend that you flip baselines, and they're very good. And then you flip them over, and you lose signals. Okay? You flip them back over. What are some things you can do to help your signals? From you direct anesthesia do this. So what does the spinal cord need? There's an image of some signal on the cord. Why did that signal happen? What does the spinal cord lose to get that T2 signal? Blood supply, right? So how do I improve my signals? How do I get the spinal cord feeling better? You do a wake-up test. You have to turn on, and neurosurgeons do this data now. You can't just say, oh, it's your doctor, call this number. Okay? So, I mean, that shouldn't affect anything you do to the patient. If I was on that table, how would I want it done to me? Okay? And that's how you should practice. But the main thing is the safety of spinal cord. Decompress first, make the spinal cord safe, and then put your screws in. Okay? Go ahead.
Yes, this is the same question. One question first. So you have an unstable yeah. The current is unstable. If you decompress, you make it more unstable. I don't know what the reason to start a decompression before putting screws can help you.
So the patient that may feel pins, right? He's not going anywhere. Once I flip him and put him pins, that fracture's not going to move. Okay, he's stabilized by the fix. It's like a halo, essentially, right? So I decompress him to get the spinal room to breathe. All right. And usually after every major maneuver I do, we run my motors. Okay, with neural monitoring. I decompress it. Now the patient's safe. Okay, now I can take my time, do my pressing, close him up. That would be very still. Okay, because he's unstable. Yeah, he has room in the back, but that's the ventral compression is still going to be there. Okay, so you can do the land mechanism stabilization. Good question.
Final question.
Or whether there's a school of thought that says you could actually just cut off the C2 nerve. Do you have any experience with that? Are there any colleagues who have any experience with that? I've never done it myself, but I keep on getting the discussion all over again that when it's not possible to place a screw properly, that you just
Right. So cutting C2. The problem is your ganglions there, right? And that's causes post-op pain and numbness. You're supposed to, when you cut the nerve, you got to do it before the ganglion, and then you make sure you close the dura properly because the CSF leads. But with the new technique I showed you, we're going infiltrating the lamina, you don't have to worry about C2 anymore. So, I mean, I've never had to sacrifice, I would free it up by dissection. So I've never had to do that. So I actually don't know anyone that's had to do that, but maybe.
I do the C2 rhizotomy sometimes. Okay. The indication for me is going to be in a lot of patients where you can reduce them really well, and then the bone heals, and that's it. But in some patients where we see a lot of very crazy trauma sometimes that you can't get a perfect reduction, it's not good contact. So I want to rely on that joint to actually fuse. In those patients, I do a rhizotomy. It's actually pretty simple. You don't have a C2 rhizotomy. We're going to move on to the next one. Thank you, Dr. Patel. We're going to have a panel at this time. So I would like to ask Dr. Karras, Dr. Lobel, and Dr. Galler. Please come up. And then, is there any volunteer from one of our African countries? Anybody who wants to participate on this panel? We can add one more person. Anybody that would like to participate on the panel? You're here.
I'm here.
Oh, Sybil. You want to sit down? Let's give him a hand. He's such a good sport. He didn't even complain. He just came right out. I asked him nice. You asked him nice. So what we're going to be talking about is various surgical issues, and you saw how many different opinions there were. There's so many ways to do things, and let's have a discussion on some of those different ways of doing stuff. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Timothy Obutu. I live and practice in Düsseldorf in Germany. So I thank you so much for having me. I have one short case on this topic, and you'll have to excuse me. I mean, once in a while I'll chip in some German. My English is a bit rusty, so just give me a push when you have a feeling I'm speaking German. So I'm going to have a family details as well.
He can speak in Dolwo.
Just your name and where you work. Once again, same thing, neurosurgeon coming from Canada.
Robert Howard from New York, United States. Chris Harris from Ohio, United States. Jeff Lavelle from Lima, Ohio.
All right, I just presented script. He is a 57-year-old that I saw about a month ago. He had 2 months ago L4 radiculopathy with pain in the right leg. PRT for L4 was done, after which the pain subsided. And then about 4 weeks ago, he developed foot lifting weakness of the right leg, power grade 3 to 4 from 5. At the time of presentation, he had no pain. So just for starters, maybe for the residents, because where the residents, maybe just pick up one. Samuel, yeah, Samuel. I met Samuel this morning. Sorry, Samuel, but yeah. So pictures are not so, but I think you can see. Where would you look if, let's say, somebody has a L4 pain on the right side? Yeah, what would you be searching for in the lumbar spine? Yes. Okay. There is some nerve root compression, isn't it? Yeah. So maybe we. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So do you see anything in this case? Let me see if I can get some better. Is there anything that is most also the radiologists sometimes miss it?
Central stenosis. Can you walk forward just to let us?
Yeah.
I think it's central. Come on,
yeah. Yeah, we have a stenosis, that's right. A relative stenosis.
But I need to see the foreigners.
Yes, there is. Let me see if I can enlarge it a little bit. So these are the foramen. Those are foramen, yeah.
What is the line?
Yeah, the line is unfortunate, but I mean, you see that there's some kind of substance here. And so these are typical intraforaminal disc products, it's normally you have to most of the times you have to, if you're not experienced well enough, you have to look twice. So radiologists also tend to miss this in the practice. So when he presented, he had got a PRT of the L4 done at this level, and he had no pain. The neurologist did electrodiagnostics, which showed a slowing of the peripheral perineal nerve, and no signs of weakness. That we did see even in the clinic, no signs of weakness of any of the medial gluteal muscle. Trendelenburg sign was negative. So we have an intraforaminal disc product, L4-5 on the right side, no pain, but motor deficit for L5. So the question was, what do we do? Yeah. So maybe this goes to the panel.
This is a difficult case because when you have, we're very myopic. You know, we have tunnel vision. We look at the central canal, and we look at the foramen bilaterally, and they're patent. But you have to look at laterals of the facet many times. So if you say this person has a clear radiculopathy and the lumbar spine looks good, look lateral to the facet, and on the axial you'll see a big disc herniation. The reason it is painful and causes weakness and can be difficult is because when you're that far lateral, you're now over the dorsal ganglion. which is very painful, very sensitive part of the nerve group. And in fact, decompressing a lateral disc herniation often doesn't have the same result as a regular disc herniation in the lateral recess, because the gross root ganglia is so much more sensitive, so much more difficult to improve over time. So for this, I would recommend surgery, typically.
Even though the weakness is for L5 and he has no pain.
Oh, he has no pain.
He has no pain because he had PRT done of an L4,
yeah.
And he came in painless, but he had a weakness, and the weakness wasn't typical L5 all through to the gluteal muscle. It was just foot, this is a foot drop.
And I would repeat the MRI in that case. Because this also is a very discrete lesion. You know, lateral recess disc herniation can have L4 and L5 components.
Yeah.
Lateral should not have L5 components. L5 is the shoulder of the nerve root in the lateral recess at this point. And so I would repeat imaging if the symptoms changed and the exam changed that one.
I'll just say this, the imaging was really fresh. I don't have the dates, but this was the latest imaging that he had after everything was done. Yeah, so, I mean, some years back, I had a patient who had intraforaminal disc prolapse L3-4, and she had L5 pain. And we did PRT, and the pain subsided, and we decided to do surgery nevertheless, and she did quite well. After surgery, she had no pain. It was one of those cases where it really doesn't fit into what you get in the textbook or what you have in your experience. So, any other suggestions or concerning treatment?
So forgive me.
Yeah.
PRT, if you could tell us what that acronym is.
Oh, so that's radicular infiltration therapy with steroids and
epidural steroids.
Yes, sorry, that's German. Yeah.
Okay. So typically for a patient with acute disc herniation, that's pretty much the avenue most of us will take. It's a conservative approach with physical therapy and an anti-inflammatory, followed by consideration for epidural steroids. In this case, a transforaminal epidural steroid injection sometimes is more effective than a caudal because of the fact that the disc herniation is lateral. So that can be very focal and helpful. And that's probably why that works so well. And then surgery again will be reserved for refractory symptoms to all of these treatments. The patient can have persistent pain and or weakness, and sometimes atypical signs can occur. But I think that if all of the non-surgical methods have been exhausted and the patient is still highly symptomatic, then I think offering them a microdiscectomy is not unreasonable.
Okay, and Jim?
One of the things in the U.S., when I see residents that they lack is the art of physical exam. I work with a population of morbidly obese individuals who are in conditions, who smoke, who are diabetics. So if I get somebody who comes in with painless weakness, red flag goes up. Because oftentimes we'll see radicular pain, but somebody's got no pain or symptoms that don't quite make sense, and an MRI that doesn't always jive, I have to look elsewhere. I look at the knee, I look at diabetic issues, and I look at peripheral vascular issues, because one of the things that you did was to have the electrodiagnostics at the knee. I've had people who come in with painless foot drops, who had lumbar surgery for benign looking MRI scans, did not improve. Now we destabilize their back depending on how aggressive the surgery bothered. I look at the knee, I get a knee x-ray, I do the rest of the physical exam, and sometimes I just continue with conservative treatment. And I have, I'd say, about 20 to 40% of the time, people improve without a clear-cut explanation. Because as oftentimes we know surgery is not the answer for everything. The body is smarter than we are, and we forget that. And oftentimes also, about 80% of our difficulties with the spine don't have a clear-cut explanation. So I think a careful physical examination at the very least an X-ray if it doesn't make sense to you. And also speaking with her on physical, not so much physical exam, but when you're interviewing a patient. I had a patient very similar to this who had some benign findings. I could argue to do a microdisc, came in with a painless foot drop. It started about a month prior after he went hiking for a period of time. And it was all because of cranial nerve injury, which he experienced, and about 4 weeks later, his foot got better. So you can get these foot drops with improvement that don't want surgery. So I always caution people, history is very important, as is physical exam. Just because we're surgeons doesn't mean that we can't examine someone and only go through the MRI. So don't, if we're getting a curveball here, don't get sucked into it. Because once you do surgery on someone, this is for the residents in particular, at least in the United States, they're your patient. And now where Dr. Patel is, where they have signs advertising, injured during surgery, call 1-800, I got injured, that's for real. So you gotta be careful what the patient's motivation is, what they want to do job-wise, their smoking history. Gather all the information before you do surgery.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions from the audience? Okay, so I think this is a good case where the decision is split on surgical and conservative treatment. We were also split. I was more reluctant on doing surgery, but we did end up doing surgery on him. The foot drop did not improve, but everything's still fresh. So we will just wait and see how it goes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So then the next case. Excuse me, okay. Yes.
While we're getting that to come up, did anybody have any more questions? Any questions to the panel?
I just had a question. As probably most juniors standing in the room, and to not operate. How do you pick patients that you know will do well? Does that make sense?
Sometimes you think you're a really good judge of character, and you can do a perfectly well done technical procedure on what you thought were absolutely reasonable indications, and have a suboptimal outcome. And sometimes you just don't know why. I think obviously red flags always, the obvious ones that you don't have to be a senior neurosurgeon to know would be, in interviewing the patient. What's their motivation? Are they interested in being enabled or disabled? Do they have other issues, such as litigation? Do they have other personal matters that make a difference in terms of what will allow them to recover? But for the most part, I think that the average person that comes in, you have to be on the positive side of things. Think, right, I'm going to do my best to help this person who wants to get better. But yeah, I'm still learning. I have patients that don't do as well as I would have expected, and I still don't know why. But fortunately, it is getting rarer. I think maybe the reason for that is because I've become even more conservative over the years, and I think that that's part of it. Less aggressive procedures and making my indications that much more firm.
And in Africa, our population is quite young, so we don't have lots of
stuff that my colleagues have here. So I don't know whether Dr. Olomia will agree with me that what probably some of you see, you don't see it common in our center. I think because you have a young population, except if it's trauma related. But in a few cases, I'll also give an example of a 78-year-old female who had a fusion 1 level, fusion L1 and 2, because of, I think she had a osteoporotic fracture at that level, and she had low region on the right side. We did a CT MRI. She had a sequestered disc that was very clear at L5 as one on the left side, on the right side. So we had a case that was onto us, and we didn't know sincerely what, because the symptoms were not matching what the imaging was giving us. And over time, I think initially we managed conservatively, then when we repeated the scans, that is the CT, we realized that one of the lower screws had actually gotten off. And it was quite a decision. Of course, we had to sit at the panel and then we said, you know what, let us just get the instrumentation out. Let's observe and see what happens. And she was happy with the results, the pain was less, so she went into a rehab. So, as my colleague said, it's the issues of feedback surgery, you will never know whether what you're going to do is going to the patient or not. You may operate many times. The case that we saw yesterday, you don't know where you're going to end with the surgery. Whether you're going to end up with just putting in implants for pain or anything like that, I don't know. Because it's a very big thing that you have to think about all the time before you subject your patient to the last surgery.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to the next. We're going to move on to the next case.
Next case.
So fast. Oh, she can't come out. Yeah.
So, one more case. This was a young, let's go back. I'll start with this, yeah. So this was a relatively young woman. I think she was almost 50. She's had lower back pain for at least two years, 2.5 years, and it got so bad in the last 8 months that she developed symptoms of L5 radiculopathy pain on the right side, on the outer side of the leg. And because of the back pain, she was put on opioids about 1.5 years ago. And the pain is normally, she described the pain as the pain increases during activity, walking. When she lies down, she has no pain. It's only during activity. So these are the pictures which are done with the colleagues in the pictures which are done outside the hospital. So this is what she presented with. This is there. Anybody, maybe the residents again, anything you see which looks kind of suspicious on these pictures.
Could we have more history?
Yes.
What side is the pain on?
The pain, the L5 is on the right side. She developed that a few months ago. Let me just go back. There is I think this one was like, this one was like that. The pain was, the main pain was in the lower back, and 8 months ago she developed pain on the leg, on the right side of the leg.
You mentioned pain when she walked. How far did she walk for the pain to start?
When she presented, when I saw her, she could maybe walk for about 10 minutes, and then she just had to sit down or just take a break. And she was on opioids, so she still had pain under opioids. Yeah.
Flexion and extension.
No, she had no motor weakness, no deficits, no numbness.
No, he asked flexion and extension of the lumbar spine.
Yeah, she had pain. She could do it, but she had pain. When I looked at her, she had pain when she flexed, and when she came up from flexing, she had pain in the lower back.
How dynamic flows?
Yeah, I have those. So the next for the residents, I mean, what would be the next investigations that you would think of? I think. Yeah. All right. So we did that. Those were dynamic X-ray pictures. There was really nothing. There is something that there's some suspicion that something that you could see which is suspicious, but the segments were all of the images stable. Yeah.
Is it very tilt?
Sorry.
The next slide has very tilt.
Just a little bit, yeah.
The pelvis is tilt.
Yeah. So what would you suspect? What would the next line of, or what would you do after this? What investigation? What?
I think I would calculate the angles of biomechanical angles of pelvis and
yeah. Well, I don't know about, okay, for in Germany, for neurosurgeons, we rarely do that. I don't know about how it is in the US. We rarely go in that direction, so I don't know, you guys don't do that. I mean, for us, the next stage was to do a CT scan.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what we did. So, that was the CT scan. And that's also for the residents in the house. What do you see? Any volunteers?
Is a fracture.
Yes.
What kind of
Which area?
Of the. Give him the microphone.
Maybe he walks over here.
He walks over here.
So, Khalid, when you're going to describe the image, you say this is a CAT scan lumbar.
The cycle view. There's a fracture. There's a past fracture there.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Don't hurt it.
Yeah, so there's a past fracture there.
What? Say it like you mean it. You
let him speak. Come on. Yeah, so there's a fracture there. That's what's the cause of our pain. So,
yeah.
So that could probably explain the symptoms.
That's right. Yeah. So the thing is, she was walking around with the MRI for 2 years. Yeah. She went through different pain specialists. So I think this just shows how important it is to, sometimes just if somebody has pain for 6 months, just take the patient seriously and go the long way. And because this was really difficult, even on the T1 MRI scans to see. So now we have the fracture, which I think is a stress fracture because she's hypomagnetic. So you have a fracture, you have back pain, but if you go back to the MRI scans, nowhere you see the compression of the L5, on the imaging. So the question is, do we operate? Do we do anything? And if we do, what do we do? Yeah. It's usually been total fusion, not just fixation. But she has been, you're not seeing the images, you don't see any compression of the L5. So,
the indication using it.
It's on the right. It's on the right side. You do surgery.
Of course, the next question, if you do surgery, what surgery are you able to do? Okay,
yeah. Because every structure you need to stabilize it, then fuse it. Then is the filler going to resolve the pain on the back? No.
Yes.
Then what are we doing? If the main concern is the back pain for 3 years, and if it's the leg, then you will observe if it's worsened, then maybe that's maybe an indication.
Okay, just to the back pain has been there for 3 years. The leg pain is also significant. It's very painful, and she's under opioids. Yeah. So any other take on that from the audience? Anybody else? Okay.
Another, you try to, what was that, others use PTR, or what we say is ESI.
What was that?
What we call epidural steroid injections. I don't know if you guys call it.
The one directly to opioids, she was on morphine. Yeah, so they're really there, but the one thing they did try, I think she had facets done, but there wasn't really any improvement.
Yeah, I would start with the L5 selective neural injection, fracture site.
Yes.
See if that improves. That can give you diagnostic information and therapeutic advantage as well. You know, she's not really angiosensing there right now.
Okay.
And it's unilateral cross structure, right? I didn't see the other side.
Bilateral.
And I'd start with that first, you know, I'd see how Dr. Gallagher cares. Great. Watch it.
Okay. So just a show runs from the sessions. I mean, how many people go conservative? Just directly conservative. 2 years paying L5. Okay. And how many people go directly to surgery?
Conservative surgery. And for this patient, you know, my team knows, I say it every time, a stimulator is an option. So a spinal cord stimulator, and films are normal. If you're trying to help her leg pain, it's unlikely to help because the flexion extension films are normal, there's no stenosis. So she has a 2-year history of radiculopathy for which she's on chronic opiates, which eventually won't help at all. A spinal cord stimulator reversible option with lifelong coverage.
Okay.
So do you have to trial first?
Yes. So there's a process, but instead of applying medication, you thread the electrode up the spine. For back and leg pain coverage, the best coverage was electrodes, 2 electrodes, new types of programming. We're doing it at T910. But you do that procedure awake. You over their pain they typically live, and if they feel like it's helping their pain day to day, you bring them back and you put both outpatient procedures. They each take about, the first one 15 to 20 minutes, the second one the permanent implant. Whereas with a fusion, there's no predicting the outcome, and the result is not reversible. If it's on the left side or a new pain in the foot, or you can remove it. They're very easily.
You can mistake it, but because of the costs, we've had to leave it for only specific patients. So it was interesting that you said you do so. We don't do the Buckingham one. It will be interesting to find out how easy it is for us to operate through that. That yes would be a useful addition in terms of service. So this for the residents, this service, the pain management part of things is available.
So Dr. Waneke will go directly to surgery. So yeah.
Just some wax into the process. That's kind of what. Yeah.
You have, for this particular one, done your scans and series of fracture, but one of the pain management is cervical decompression, probably. So of pain management that's going on. That's not available in any, even at the National Hospital, it's not available. So for this kind of patients, and for patients who don't have the luxury of
So for this patient, I would say that I would follow pretty much the paradigm that Dr. Patel laid out before deciding about surgery. So give a trial of conservative management in terms of either a framing steroid injection
and or a pars injection. And as you mentioned, it ends up being therapeutics. Then there may be a subtle instability that's just not being caught by the x-rays. Got to remember the MRI and CAT scan are done supine. So you're not going to see the listicus necessarily. The x-rays, they're fair, but I can't say that you can always appreciate everything that's going on at the framinal level. You don't need a 3 millimeter dynamic slip to suggest that there's some sort of micro instability there. So I would work in that direction. And I've done many of these. They get no relief whatsoever with any of that. I don't use surgery as a Hail Mary. It's an American term for last ditch, hopeless effort. I think at that point the morbidity of the surgery outweighs the potential benefit. But if you go through a pretty good workup and conservative pelvical, are all sorts of imaging that does show some subtleties that supine imaging.
I think that's an important point because with the imaging, the subtle instability, we have a blind spot, the thing we just cannot see. So, and that was our thought process, yeah, so that the MRI was done supine. We see a little bit of the tilt in the X-ray, the side X-ray, the lumbar X-rays, and we were thinking that direction. I'll just give you one thing.
Just one other comment. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. So a critical part of the history is when does the pain start getting worse? A lot of these spondylolistheses start to slip at the end of the day when their back starts loosening up. They wake up very stiff and the muscles are holding them in place. So we started collecting data in Boston where we've been doing our dynamic films around 3 or 4 p.m. After the patients had a long day of walking around, loosening up. We found x-rays in the morning. They have minimal slip, no gross instability. We're finding instability at the end of the day as their muscle, their paraspinal muscles loosen up. So I started in my clinic now. I used to see my new patients in the morning. They come in the morning, get their peripheral 40 their sploid films, electrodynamic films. I push them to the afternoon now, so they have their normal day, loosen up, then they get their dynamic films, and I'm catching more slips now. Okay. And then also, like Dr. Gallo said, standing films are give you a lot of valuable information as well now. When you're lying down, the flexion extension of the little towel roll is not adequate in my opinion. You have to be standing, bend forward, bend backwards, extension. You have to be standing up and bend for me.
Were those standing?
Those are standing.
Those were standing.
Yeah, I'm just giving in general.
To start answering the question that was asked, the first thing that I ask a patient like this who's got a 2-year history, who's gone through conservative management, who's on morphine, is what do you want? What is your expectation? Because as we've all mentioned, surgery is not reversible. If I have a patient, and to allude also towards Dr. Patel's question, who says, I want it fixed, that's a concern for me because I can't fix it to their satisfaction. We're not 18. I don't have fairy dust that I can give you to make you 18. So you're not going to be the way you were. If I have somebody who comes in who is non-functional, cannot perform their job, and has reached a point that their life has been so affected, then we start going down the surgery trail with the full awareness of what can happen with surgery. Because as we've all heard and we all know, and we saw with Victor's wonderful case yesterday, is back surgery brings more back surgery. But if you have somebody who clearly has a reasonable expectation, who has a good historian, then the way I think this case is going to go is not unreasonable. So I don't want to say what I would do, but I think there's something to be said about doing surgery.
So this was my thought process. We had the thing is, the reason we did not do any injections was she was. So we were kind of that's why we were reluctant on giving injections. So the thought was the progressive lower back pain we took that as an evidence of the instability, the sudden instability we were not seeing on the images. So we decided that we'll do surgery. And then the question was, what kind of surgery? Would you just do a foraminotomy, although there is nothing, you don't see any compression of the L5, or would you do foraminotomy and fusion? And if you fuse, let me just go back to the CT scans. How far would you go? So I don't know about you guys, but for me, this stuff sometimes keeps me awake. So when you're thinking, okay, how far would you go when you want to fuse this? So any takes on that? So we decided for surgery. We decided we needed to do surgery. So what would you then do?
So the question is, how much to fuse?
How much to fuse? Yeah.
So for me, I would probably try to just keep it simple, and do 5-1. I think back to your use true sagittal balance as the indicator that she is hyperlordotic. You want to do the skill set that you want to get so that you can impart that upon them, because it's really become an important part of even neurosurgical practice now.
Okay.
I don't want to call it an orthopedic thing, but it's a spine thing. Take care of the segment that's disease.
We'll go further than the affected segment. Maybe one would fuse from L4 to S1. Is there any question? Would you fuse from L4 to S1 or just L5 S1? Keep it simple as Dr. Gala says.
I want to come back to the previous point from making. Will let's say MIS foraminectomy alone, will it be a fast track for this patient?
That's fusing.
No, just to decompress MIS minimally invasive surgery without doing much and see what the result is.
What's worse, the leg or the back pain?
Most important.
I did the surgery and I just did, I fused L5 S1, and interestingly enough, intraoperatively, the L5 on the right side was, so I think the thought process at the beginning of the surgery, the L5 pain subsided completely. She had no pain in the leg. The back pain reduced just a little bit. So we're still controlling, but this is what we ended up doing. And I just thought this was a good example of a case where you split on the decision, where you find different opinions to it. So that's it. Any more questions?
Doing nerve monitoring prior.
The leg pain got there immediately, sorry, but the back pain was just a little bit, not really, So that it's fresh. I think I did the surgery, I think it's about 3 weeks ago. So she's coming back in about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I think for these cases, I mean, expectations have to be laid out very well. And the patient needs to know that there's a chance that nothing is going to improve. For me, usually I do the squint test. If I can't see the pathology from across the room, you're not getting surgery. But this is a person who benefited from surgery. So I think that there's...
Another 3 weeks.
Well, the radiculopathy has gotten better.
She was really
well for now.
We had her for about 10 days, and she really did improve. We I think she was on and she was ibuprofen. I don't know if you also call it ibuprofen, yeah, also used.
Yeah, so you guys use ibuprofen infusion?
Yeah, we do, yeah. It's different. I think there's a discussion on that. Yeah, so she did benefit, yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Robert Galler on surgical management of thoracolumbar spine trauma. Dr. Galler. Thanks, Dr. Okuchi, for that presentation. Those were really good cases for discussion that you brought up.
While it's being set up, right? Or if you probably tell the residents what this squint test of yours is.
My squint test is if I can't see the pathology if I have to squint to figure out where the pathology is, for me that's non-surgical. I typically only operate on things that are very obvious. So if I have to squint and look at it from a distance, change the angle and kind of lean back, then for me, I send it to my friends. And usually they're willing. I said this to
Well, good morning. My name is Rob Galler. I'm from New York. Before I get started, I just wanted to acknowledge some folks. Dr. Ward, thank you for inviting me. I've known Vic since he was a resident, and it's amazing to see the surgeon he's involved into. So, absolutely welcome. So, thank you very much. The team, 20 strangers, 20 friends. Awesome, awesome. I love it. So I had 2 talks that I prepared. One is kind of boring, talks about the columns of the spine. It's the stuff that we take our board exams for, and it's something that I'm more than happy to provide the residents with a PDF file, and you can learn about DENI, you can learn about Holdsworth, all of the different criteria for fusion. And I thought we'd have some fun and really just go over how we do this crazy stuff, because you've seen some images of the spine, and the question really becomes, how did that get that way? So, let's see if I can get this to work. There it is. There's my mouse. So in this case, we have to disclose whether or not we're under the payroll of a company, and I am not. I have taught for the various companies, whether it be Hue or Synthes or Medtronic or Stryker or K2M, not currently under any financial agreements. So I'm going to just start with this. Is Dr. O'Ward here? I'm just wondering if this passes the squinting test. So this is a case, if you look at the label up there, from Temuhimbili Hospital in Dar es Salaam. So anything I'm talking about today is applicable to East African neurosurgery. Some of it is far-fetched, and we have instrumentation and techniques that may not be readily available to you. So I'll try to talk about the alternatives that you might consider in a resource-limited environment. But this is a real case. This is a young man who basically had a ton of bricks dropped on him. He was standing next to a dump truck, and they were building something, and this whole thing just came down on him. So, sorry, Patty, you're right there. I can't help myself. So describe what you see pretty briefly, if you can.
Yeah, so we see a CT scan, 3D reconstruction of thoracolumbar spine of a patient with, let's say, a totally destroyed spine, 5 or 3 That's Lumbar Junction. T12 L1. I'm sure he's RPG.
Yeah. So clinically, this was brought to indication for that. In the States, patients are going to get operated on. The likelihood of neurologic recovery is slim to none, but the understanding is they can be ambulated, passively and discharged through rehab in a more efficient way, rather than lay on their back, develop bed sores, and then succumb to urinary tract infection, pneumonia, and the like. So, since I was there, we elected to offer the patient surgery. We had implants. So, if you take a look at this picture, I know it's a little bit difficult, but this is the interspinous ligament here and here. Okay? That just gives you an idea of what we had before. So what I did was a reduction of that and got them pretty straight. We put in rods on one side and then on the other. And we got a pretty fair construct. And fortunately, the patient did well on a medical standpoint. Unfortunately, there was no neurologic recovery. But the indication here in my mind was if we stabilize this young man, at least he can be given some physio and mobilized in an effective way to avoid the long-term sequelae of spinal cord injury. So this is our first United States case, okay? 50-year-old high-velocity MBA, another complete. He was in spinal because I wanted to stay on time. Again, here's another nasty injury going through all three columns. What are the techniques that we use? Well, in spinal surgery, we can go from the front, we can go from the side, and we can go from the back. And so that requires an access surgeon generally. Some of us that were trained with the ability to access the spine this way, I don't anymore. I just don't want to take the liability in this day and age. I have some colleagues that do their own thoracotomies. I stopped doing that the minute I got into residency because the malpractice implications in the States preclude doing that, but there are plenty of surgeons who do their own approaches. Posterolateral, something called a costotransversectomy or lateral extracavitary approach, and this is done from the back of the spine. It doesn't require an access surgeon, and you can do a lot through that approach. And then posteriorly, purely a laminectomy, or what we call a transpedicular approach. Again, you can kind of combine the two. Does allow for access to the neural elements. These are all features of these. Before you get to the neural elements and you stay away from them, you can do the decompression fusion through. This is a quick look at some landmarks. And so, as I mentioned, I'm happy to make some copies of this presentation so that the residents will have these. You want to know where you're going to put these screws. And so the thoracic spine is a little different than the lumbar spine. And the landmarks change at each level. And you can see on the left, the size of the pedicle in the AP view is also quite variable. So, generally, I'll get stuck with something where it's always going to be T4, 5, and 6, which is the smallest pedicles in the spine, and you just realize that you're going to be in for a world of hurt. The angle of the pedicle screw, again, is shown on the right side, and that does vary. It becomes more flush as you go down. This is another look at those landmarks or trajectories. And there are different trajectories one can take to put screws into the spine. One is basically parallel with the end plate of the spine, and one is more parallel with the path of the pedicle. One is called anatomical, and one is called true. And so, as far as I'm concerned, any pedicle screw that goes in and doesn't hit the spinal cord or the nerves is a good one. But when my screws kind of have different varying angles, I go, no, I put that one into the anatomical trajectory, and this one with the true. This is a little picture showing exactly sort of the landmarks and how we get these devices in. Any of the scrub team that's been working with us, unfortunately, can't really see sometimes what's going on in that incision. But what we're doing is we're exposing the surface of the spine. We're drilling a hole into the entry point of the pedicle. This is a nice picture because it really does show some of the questions. These are the best PIMP answers, articular facet, transverse process, pars intra-articularis. That area there, you draw a little mind's eye triangle and you get through it, that generally will lead you into the pedicle. There are a couple of other ways to put pedicle screws in the thoracic spine. The pedicle itself, of course, can accept the screw, and if you have the option to measure them with CAT scans, it allows you to pick the right length and diameter. There's something called an in and out technique, which is basically going through the rib, getting that cortical bone to bite the threads of the screw before going into the vertebral body. I try not to use that, but sometimes you have no choice, and you have to sort of put the patient's pedicle in the thoracic of feeling it. So you're putting screws in at any time. There's no harm in opening up the canal enough so that you can palpate the pedicle so that you can give yourself every chance possible putting that screw in the right place. These are some pictures showing some sawbones, and I understand we're going to do a bit of a lab later. So that'll do something that we call laminectomy now. We shifted into, and you see that little target sign there, a different entry point is noted for that pedicle screw, and the other pictures show some X-ray confirmation of that. Again, more images showing the placement with a description of their trajectory and also angulation. Again, this is the difference between the thoracic and the lumbar spine. The entry point here is generally at that junction of the transverse process near the mammillary eminence, lateral to that superior articular facet. It's sort of pretty brutal, jamming this huge ice pick into the spine, then palpating the hole with the ball feeler. So that's what we're here. I don't know if Peter or Ruto are here, but these are the instruments that we've been handing most of us to be put in. That's the tap. And then sometimes we put a wire in to confirm its position. Moving down, the sacrum has a different set of entry points and has some specific angles that we concern ourselves with. I won't bore you with those details now. So for that case, we fixated 3 above and below, got a fair alignment, and let's see. What did it show? Here's an intraoperative shot showing the ligament as it's been disrupted. We get a bit of alignments along the way. And some nice post-op imaging showing the passive decompression. I probably could have pushed that bone fragment down a little bit more through that pedicle, but as I recall, this patient had a CSF leak because it was such a massive injury, and I got conservative. And so here you have the construct, the alignment is improved, and you can see that we've got a few strikes there, thank goodness. We did a conference with complications. I can assure you, I can show you that with the best of intentions, bad things can happen. And this is what the construct looks like, or a vehicle accident with a fracture dislocation. And again, here we have an even larger operation because he had 2 non-adjacent fractures and instability of the spine throughout. So we got a pretty good correction, and actually got pretty good balancing so that undervertebral body pleural effusions has essentially been destroyed. And so going back to that little grid, I know you all memorized it after glancing at it for 1 second, but you know, would you do a laminectomy alone? For the residents, any of you guys? No, right? You're all shaking your heads. Good. I'm teaching you well. It's not a good idea. A lateral posterior approach. You could do an extracavitary. You could go outside the rib. It looks great on paper, and if you read the original article, it's a nice little approach. You take the rib while you're there, you add in this graft. And so the problem is, how do I keep on? Okay? And so basically, you can do a posterior approach with an anterior cage and posterior stabilization. So basically, those cages didn't get to the front of the thoracic spine magically. The surgeon that did it had to get there somehow. It's become extremely popular. It showed up on 2 of our complication cases today, and give a little bit of background on how those materials got there. So laminectomy has been shown to evolve because now we have pedicle screws. In a resource-limited environment, I could take time to talk to you about wiring a Lukey rod, and that's something that may be the way to do it, because it's what we're going to talk about. Additionally, we have these things called expandable cages. And it's what it sounds like. It's a cage that expands that can go into the spine. This is that costotransversectomy from the original paper. This is sort of a model showing how we do those cage placements. All right, so I'll step through. You get a laminectomy, you decompress the spine, you evacuate the infection or get rid of the tumor. You remove the rib heads, you remove the transverse processes at the level, and you see these nerves dangling in the wind. Then what you can do is basically get around the area and drill out 1 or 2 pedicles to basically get around the spinal cord. And what you see here, now I don't ligate 3 of them generally, but you can ligate some of the thoracic nerve roots without causing a major problem. They will end up with potentially a radiculitis in the area, but that's a small price to pay for having a massive spine surgery, I think. You essentially clear that area. Then what we can do is put in one of these titanium cages that you saw on the x-ray into that space and essentially crank it up. In the past, with the non-expandable cages, you couldn't fit a rigid, what we call a harm's cage in that area because there's no possible way of really getting it in without causing havoc. That could be put into the front, but again, that's where the chest surgeon needed to be involved. Here, you see that cage is being expanded, and as you know, the rod is on the other. This is the cadaver. We excavated this area of the spine, and then you can see we snuck that cage in there, ligating the 1 nerve root. And so this is that case. Did a bunch of measurements, made sure that we had the right instrumentation and we could get the right materials in. We localized, we put some screws in. The movie doesn't work, I don't think. We don't have time for it. These are just a bunch of movies that don't work. And basically we get our cage in there, we keep pushing it across until we get it straight, and specifically. And there's a lot of lessons that we've all learned the hard way, which is don't overexpand, don't overdo, and try to make sure you visualize everything. So the little A is where I come from, and I'm very grateful for being invited here. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Galler. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. LaBelle, and he's going to be discussing minimally invasive and lateral approaches to the spine.
Well, I guess we could have Vikram have us stand up and shout or whatever we did earlier this morning. Bear with me just for a sec because the slides are incredibly important, at least for me to explain minimally invasive. Done between minimally and maximally invasive that you have to understand. But minimally invasive spine actually represents what I believe the evolution in where spine surgery is going. Spine surgery, as we all know, we make these large incisions, we try to localize, we look at anatomical markers. By the time we really get in there, we've lost 500 cc's of blood. We have an incision that's a half a foot long. And given what I've seen with how people can manage their incisions, in my limited experience at the hospital here, I am a little